Hey, how everybody doing? Knowledge is wealth. Rich people own libraries. Poor people own TVs. Poverty starts in the mind before it reaches your hand. Knowledge is wealth. I'm Issa Abu Issa.
This is Coach Gaines.
This is Nafis Abu Zaid. How all of y'all doing? This is a continuation of the series that we have been doing. This particular part of the series is going into a new direction here, which is now going to be dealing with the effective leadership. All right, so we're still talking about the maintenance and the management of the masjids, and how during this pandemic we've seen how weak
we've seen the
we
system.
were
We've seen the system
economically, as well as organizational structure, socially, and how now we can take this golden opportunity, inshallah, to redirect, regress, and reform if we can. So we're going to deal with the effective leadership in regards to running the masjid, and not just the masjid itself, but the organizational structure. So we're going to start with an overview. So many of you know when we talked about effective leadership, we talk about Imam. So for those who don't know, sometimes when you hear the word Imam, you think of a person leading the prayer. Or you hear the word Imam, you might think of the ruler.
The ruler of the country.
Or you hear the word Imam, you think of the A'imma, the 4 Imams, right? And you say, why is they called Imams and they don't have a masjid, right? Imam have many different many different meanings in the Arabic language. They have a linguistic meaning, as well as it also have different meanings that comes in the Quran, and even in the Sunnah. So when you have someone that's like a qudwa, or an example, then that person is an Imam. If that person is an Imam, as Allah Jalla wa'ala says, Inni ja'iluka linnasi imam. He said to Ibrahim that we're going to make you to the people an Imam. All right, so an Imam to the people is a qudwa, an example, meaning they're going to follow in your footsteps. They're going to take after your example. So having an Imam is an integral part, inshallah. So we're going to look at that. What does it mean? What's the qualifications? What should you have? Imam does play the role of leadership. All right? I want you to understand this. Important. The post of an Imam is very central to Islam. This informs why caution must be taken when appointing an Imam. Just as the position of human head is crucial to the body, the position of an Imam is non-negotiable in Islam. The position of an Imam is non-negotiable in Islam. When two people are traveling, the Prophet ﷺ enjoined them to appoint an Imam amongst themselves. Even when you are traveling, you should have an Amir. Sometimes they use the word Amir. You should have someone who is the leader. All right? This same principle holds for a group of 3 and above. A society, group, or institution without an Imam will be led by the devil. All right? And it might be some narrations that's not mentioned here. Not having somebody leading you, so forth. The political scientists opined that a society devoid of leadership will be thrown into chaos, which is true. All right? Will be thrown into chaos.
It's funny because even the animal kingdom, they have the same order. I mean, a lion has a pride. You go through the animal kingdom, it's always an alpha. The wolves, the tigers, there's always an alpha running the pack.
And in our community, we minimize that. We minimize it on every level. Like yesterday, we talked about the Imams are getting the, just give a few classes, just give a few reminders. We really don't need all of that from you. And then you have the case of like the employer and the employed. Sometimes you would go to a brother's store, and it will be a brother sitting in front. You know who owns the store, but you say to the brother, you say, oh, hey, Sonic, mashallah, you work here. He says, now I work with the brother. And it's like, all right, we just try our best to knock down the idea of somebody being in charge. No. And it's a bit rebel to move like that.
No. So the concept of an Imam can be perceived narrowly and broadly dependent on the circumstances, the usage, or in context and environment. So we're going to go into some little bit preliminaries dealing with the effective leadership before we really start getting into our regular routine, how we are. So let's look at the narrow usage. Sometimes when you look at a narrow, straightforward way, the most minimum way you can think of what an Imam plays, right? The situational Imam, right? Wherever Muslims are, they are to be coordinated, directed, and led by an Imam, not by personal whims and desires. For instance, went on a journey at a program, a conference, or any other forum, an imam must be appointed to take charge of the situation. The mandate given to him terminates at the end of the program. In other words, for the function, wherever we at, the event, okay, you're going to take control, you run this part, you delegate, facilitate. He's the facilitator. That facilitator, without using the word imam, pretty much of that event would be what we call a situational imam, because it's based on a circumstance here that he'd be an imam. He had to take the role and responsibility of leadership at that point.
And one of the things important from that is because usually when you have those people that run those events, because they have the knowledge, they have the qualities and the information to be qualified to do that in that particular situation. So that goes to show you that knowledge again is wealth. Because even if you go to like people they put together, like my foster mother, she does designs, like stages, like something like we have here, Search and Rescue. She goes around the country and does it. But she had to go to school for that. She had to get decades of what you call that?
Education,
training and things like that to eventually end up being experienced enough to run our own situation. So that goes to show you again, knowledge is wealth.
And also, if there's no imam or no amir, there is no unity. And we talked last week about unity a lot. So knowing the leadership role in it and how it plays a direct effect on unity and how a unit moves. We must definitely pay attention to that.
Exactly.
All right, broad usage. This I'll let Coach read that.
So broad usage of the substantive imam. Substantive imam.
Go ahead.
This refers to an imam whose mandate and tenure of authority is on a permanent basis or a relatively longer period. The authority to direct, coordinate, and control the people or community does not cease until the death of the imam, expiration of the appointment, or when removed from the post of imam due to gross misconducts and or other acts of indiscipline which Islam abhors. The imam of the masjid and Muslim rulers fall within the definition of substantive imam. Substantive imam is a trust bearer for the community. The post is a social contract, a contractual agreement in which the ruled followers relinquish their liberty to the ruler, the imam, under an agreement between both parties. In this case, on the basis of the Quran and the Sunnah.
That's important. This is important to understand this right here, because like you said, there's only two people that really will fall under this mainly here. It's either going to be the ruler, or it's going to be the imam of a masjid, because the imam of the masjid might be there for 4 years, 5 years,
sometimes longer,
sometimes longer than that.
Yeah, they are.
But there is a basic agreement that's pertaining to the people of that community and the imam, or the members of the society and the ruler. All right, so if you go back to the earlier Salaf, like Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he became in office, you listen to some of the statements that he made when he addressed the people. And he said that, if I'm doing something wrong, then advise me. So he's speaking because there's a trust that must be had, him being over top of them, and them trusting that he's going to stick to the injunctions of the Book of Allah and the Sunnah to be able to carry forth.
Well, something that brings to the point where Sheikh Uthaymeen was explaining to me. This is years ago. Me and you was talking about this issue before, and how Sheikh Uthaymeen was saying how how they have the boards that get rid of the imam without the community. Really, the community is the ones that take this contract with the imams that can come and say, "Oh, we don't want this imam anymore," or "We want this imam." The masjid itself, the people inside the masjid are not even told when the imam is removed or when somebody's been implemented.
That's a very important point.
Well, no. Listen. The way it was happening was that the board was separating the masjid from the board. But in reality, the imam is the one who's supposed to head the board.
Yeah.
So if the imam of the masjid is the one who set forth, as we're going to come across this, he set forth the board. And once he put the board in play and he put the right people in the right position, it shouldn't be whereas though the board now takes a head of its own
my point
away
is the
from
board
actual
is taking the
community.
decision away from the community.
Exactly.
And they shouldn't.
Well, the board's supposed to represent the community.
But they never do.
And they never do, and they don't for the most part. But based off what you're saying, what it looks like is similar to like how a corporation is run.
Exactly.
You have the imam as the CEO, and then you have the board is his directors, his board of directors.
Right.
But and it's unique because in Islam, the board is supposed to represent the community, right? The people that come to the masjid every day, the custodians, the people that are more responsible for the day-to-day affairs of the masjid. But the way that the role reversal we've been seeing is that board is in control of the imam.
Yeah.
But that board really shouldn't step in until there's some serious misconduct on the imam's part. When there's some serious misconduct on the imam's part, now the board can step in and vote him out. You know, some things can happen, but it's still the voice of the people.
Yeah,
and the people shouldn't want the imam in place, and the board is secretly moving things in and out, and the community don't understand what's going on.
They have to go to the community, have these conversations, but that's like that part is being missing out on how this whole thing is working out.
Yeah, but in here it's going to explain about the board. It's going to go into detail, but it's going to tell you that the board should be spearheaded by the imam anyway.
Yeah.
And the imam should put it together. The functions of an imam today. Traditionally, imam performs so many functions for the community. He is appointed to lead. The following is a summary of the functions. I want to stop there real quick. He is appointed to lead. When you appoint an imam, that's his job. His job is to lead, not just to lead you in prayer, not just to lead you in religious information, but his job is to lead.
He's a life leader. He's a life coach.
And sometimes some people forget the fact of the responsibility of an imam is to take charge and to lead. And to put and delegate and facilitate and put the right people in the proper place who have the right qualifications to actually lead or to run this particular office or responsibility. That's his job. That's the job of the imam. This is why it's so important when we get to this part, how to select an imam. You see, everybody can't just be an imam. You understand what I'm saying? Just because you might have some religious information does not mean that you have all of the qualifications of being an imam, just because you have
the holistic package.
Exactly, the holistic package. So we're going to get into some of that stuff, all right?
You know, one of the things I think about one time where when I was in Egypt, and I read this ethar before, man. It was in this book. It was a book called How to Dealing with the Leaders upon Kitab and Sunnah. Right. And it was a pretty thick book, but anyway, it had a lot of ethar in it about how to deal with leadership. And one of the things it was saying is that a weak leadership and strong leadership. He said strong leadership is always better, even if the strong leadership has some. He may not be the best person religiously, right? I'm not talking about the imam. I'm just saying in general. And this really was talking about the political leader, but we can apply some of it here. And it was saying that so a weak leader, though, even if he's super religious, though, he's going to have a lot of problems in his leadership. But a strong person who has a strong will and he has these strong qualities, conviction and stuff like that, he's always going to be the one better off for the people in the long run instead of the weak one.
Well, you find that when you look at the rulership of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, who comes from the line of Umar ibn al-Khattab, who some say that he was and we talked about this before, he was the rightly fifth Khalifa, but we don't say that because we have Muawiyah, who is a companion, who's have more right than him, as Sheikh Saleh Ali Sheikh brought. But he still is a Rashid. We still say he's a Khalifa Rashid. Anyway, his rule was only for about 2.5 years, approximately like how Abu Bakr was. Mm-hmm. But the thing that stood out with him is that he was dispensing justice, and that's one of the things that you're talking about, that the stronger ruler is going to make sure everyone get their haqq. Mm-hmm. And he's going to be strict, he's going to be fully convicted, he's going to stick to what's need to be there. And some of the things that he did was he used to live in comfort before he even got the position. When he got the position, he stopped living in comfort. He stopped living in luxury. He actually had his family, his wife, he told her, look, if you're going to be a part of this, then this is how we're going to live moving forward. Mm-hmm. And then when he actually took office, his cousins, who was used to living because they were from the Umayyads, and anybody know that Uthman ibn Affan and them, they know that they was actually wealthy. Mm-hmm. His cousins them was living good and too, but when he became the ruler, he said, no, look, we're going to start taking certain things that you don't have because the people need to have their rights. So that full conviction means a lot. You know what I'm saying? So some of the roles that the imam plays is like a guardian and a leader. By virtue of his knowledge and insight, he functions as a guardian, a murshid, and a leader as an amir. He leads prayer, offerings, and other acts of ibadah where people are well informed. The imam combines both spiritual and political powers. All right, I just want to reverse that again. The imam combines between both spiritual and political powers. Now, for the Salafis, all right, the hardcore Salafis right now say they hear the word political, ikhwani, then all the flares goes up,
man,
right?
they go crazy.
But if you think about it, what was the Prophet ﷺ? The Prophet dealt with politics.
Yeah, so did Umar. So did
When you think
Uthman.
about it,
He was diplomatic. And
He was diplomatic. So the Prophet ﷺ had to deal with what? Politics, and he also had to deal with the spiritual.
I mean,
realm.
what about
he
when
combined between both
when
of
they
those.
had to make that treaty with the pagans, and he wrote Ali wrote the Prophet Muhammad Nabi Allah.
Yeah, the
and
Quraysh was saying,
the
we
Quraysh
don't
said,
know him
him
as
as the messenger of Allah. So he told Ali to erase it, be diplomatic, and he just wrote Muhammad.
And just wrote Muhammad.
That's
sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
politics.
That's
That's
politics. So in terms of that, and like he told Ali, you erasing it doesn't move the fact that I'm still the messenger of Allah. You know what I'm saying? But that's politics.
So when we go talk to a politician in America now, I'm Ikhwani.
Yeah, no,
It don't even make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense at all. Number two, an arbiter and a judge. All right. So his profound knowledge of Sharia allows him to counsel, adjudicate, and settle disputes happening in his domain or in the masjid. Now, I want to stop here, okay? Because
I want to ask.
I don't want this to be
I wanna ask
unrestricted.
something this too.
All right, I don't want no one to misunderstand this. And unfortunately, a lot of people that do have the seat of power, it sometimes go to their head. It could be a number of things, a combination of things. A person could be young at the time. A person can be actually, he can be eager. He can be arrogant. He got multiple different things that allow that to get to him. So whereas though he think now he can just apply the hudud, like you can't apply the hudud.
We had the guy cut the dude head, the hand off of him, Overbrook that time.
You can't just
or somebody believing that they have some type of sultana in the in
like
the land,
inherently they have this authority that
or being a caliph in America, or these type of
You had
these
some
type of
people in
ideas.
America saying they was the wali al-amr of the Muslims. I mean, you had these type of statements, like
All right, so listen.
So now this has gone to Imam's head previously. So how do we make balance of this?
listen. Whether or not we can have a leader representing the Muslims in America, that is open to fiqh. That's open to fiqh. That means it's a fiqh issue. What do you mean by leader of the Muslims in America? Do you mean an organizational structure where we have one voice, whereas though we delegate and deal with the non-believers so that we can get things done? That's what you mean by a leader? Or do you mean the same leader of a Muslim country? Now, that's when we get into the details.
Exactly.
So if an individual is moving in the way that we mentioned first, that he's only want to speak and be able to interact on behalf of the Muslims in America, and they all agreed and selected him for that job, and they are confident enough that he will get the job done, then that's not
This is a united front.
That's a united front. That's not the same as a person thinking that he's the ruler.
And that he can punish,
like the ruler of a country.
He can punish,
and that he
all
have the
that.
same things that are under their authority. He has the same.
Like he has the same authority as a caliph would.
No, that's not the same. Okay, so that's a little
Separate
bit different.
husbands and wives and give
Because
and
believe it or not, that's what we're
punish
actually
people.
that's what we're actually pushing for. We believe that in this pandemic, we should be able to create and consolidate a one body or organization or even a leader that can take the front to deal with the non-believers, because we're minority, and to deal with certain things so the Muslims can have certain things done for them within this land.
And that sets a precedence. That creates a template for others to follow behind or to get in line with, because that will give us that kuwa, that political block that we were talking about.
All right, so
or that financial block, whereas though now we could talk more about group finance, or group sadaqah, initiatives and things like that.
No, so when it comes to rulings and stuff like that, I don't want no one to mistake this right now that every imam is not going to have rules about the Sharia of how to rule. All right, that's not necessary. That's not what we experience in our lands. I'm just being honest. If you want to be honest, we don't experience imams being that well endowed and well versed within the Sharia period. And a lot of times, even when it comes to our students, and it's not to take no points to nobody because I'm not mentioning nobody's name. I mean, Allah reward everyone's effort. But when it comes to our students, some of them are have a little bit information or have a lot of information in one particular science of Islam or one particular field in Islam, and they're still getting the basis on that. But they might not be well seasoned or well versed in every science of Islam. And every different thing. So they might not be well versed in certain things like that.
Well, can I say that before you go on, man? just simple fact that I'm kind of like saddened that you even got to keep explaining that. You got to keep saying, oh, we're not taking shots at people, or we're not saying this. At the end of the day, we got to be tough-skinned. And what I mean by that is that when we're all men, and my brother here doesn't have to keep saying we're not talking about anybody. Listen, if it don't apply, let it fly. And he's not talking about nobody specific, but the reality, we know our land, we know our people, and we know the situation here. We're just speaking on a general situation. At the end of the day, everybody who's studied and everybody who's benefited, come back, benefit their people. May Allah reward them and give them good in this life and the next. But at the end of the day, we have a lot of plot holes. We have a lot of weaknesses as a community, and we're just pointing those weaknesses out. It's not about anybody in general, Pacific, but at the end of the day, we got to be more tough-skinned. This is a conversation that has to be had, and don't take it personal. If it apply, don't let it fly. If it don't apply, let it fly.
No.
Come on, man.
Okay, a spiritual and a ceremonial head is one of the functions of an imam as well. The imam of the community solemnizes and anchors all spiritual matters.
Oh, solemnize.
Okay.
Like solemn.
Okay. He officiates all Islamic rites, ceremonies such as the janazah, the akikah, the salat, the war, the marriage, okay, etc. This was the tradition during the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the righteous companion. This is more so dealing with the ruler. I just want y'all to know that, right? A lot of this is dealing with the ruler, all right? And especially here in the West, it's not the same how it is in the East.
But
Okay.
these things are performed in the masjid. There are
Nikah is, akikah is,
janazah
is, but when
the
it
only
comes
thing
to
here that's not
when it comes
is
to war,
yeah. That's the only thing that's excluded here is war.
Yeah, but not only on that front, but just as a whole overall, our imams here in the West don't fill all these responsibilities.
Okay.
Like even in the East, all of the imams in the East don't fill the same responsibilities, and a lot of this stuff have been restricted and trickled down, and you will see it. I mean, because we got to be in the modern. If you bring it up to the modern. Number 4, Chief Security Officer. He is charged with tasks of providing maximum security for his followers. Their lives, property, integrity, and wealth are secure under his control and leadership. The imam must have contact phones of the police departments, chairmen of local governments, leaders in other faiths, and key members of the community in his domain.
So, but this is considered Ikhwani. My problem is this. So in this is what I'm saying is that if the Sharia, one of the points of the Sharia is that it's all about the well-being of people, right? That's like the source of it. So as an imam, why wouldn't you have the number to the local congressman, the number to the local alderman, the number to the local police chief, or that chief of that police department in your area? Why wouldn't you? I mean, that would just make sense.
And the reason why you should have it is because of the fact of security. So if you want to make sure that your followers and the congregants are secure and that the trust that you have with them and they have into you, you want to make sure everything that brings about security in the land that you're in, you have access to those people who enforce that security, those people, because remember, you don't have your own army. You're not the leader of a Muslim country. You're imam. So you want to make sure you know exactly what's going on, that you understand that you're in contact. And
this takes diplomacy. It takes outreach. You know, it takes community activism.
And these things are in place for the citizens of the land.
Well, the imam shouldn't be Hollywood status. Sometimes it takes me out. I used to tell some brothers, I say, well, why are you acting all Hollywood? You're in the imam position and I don't know where you live at. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that I need to know where you live at, but I'm saying I don't know where you live at. You act as if it's a barrier between the congregants, you know, the followers, and then you. Like, what are you doing?
People sometimes, I've heard people say they're scared of getting trunked and stuff like that.
I mean, some stuff, there's some real cases where people actually was like that. They was talking about money.
Yeah, they was talking about money.
Man, you got a poor imam. Sometimes people ain't looking for the poor imam to put them in the trunk. But I'm just saying, it's just let you know how, you know.
But that goes back to choosing a well-rounded imam, because if a person has status in the community, he's not going to get trumped. You know, either trunked or trumped. Both, because you know he has that status, he has that authority, he has those relationships where he's just not as sweet. So, but
we have cases where people who are upon taqwa have been harmed by other Muslims. That's true, and the extreme forms have been assassinated. We know that. But like you're saying, overall, if we got an imam who is really truthful, he's not trying to take from the people unlawfully. He's not cheating the people. and he's
The
really
norm
trying
is they're pretty safe.
they're pretty much safe with that guy.
Yeah.
And they actually, they actually endorse him because they realize that this guy here is really worried about the deen and stuff like that. That's normally the case, unless you get somebody raunchy, don't really know better, and they harm the imam,
Yeah.
But other than that, people really would rob a person that they see is genuine,
Mm-hmm.
Financial officer. Okay, I told you we on the financial show, right? So the imam should have some understanding of finance. All right. The imam should safeguard the wealth of the community generated from the proceeds of zakat. We're going to get into all of this: the waqf, the endowment, fines, subscriptions, levy, and proceeds from land under cultivation and leasing. He may delegate this assignment to a qualified person, but ensures that the report is received from the person from time to time. This is important. Woo! Coach, you can style right here.
Look, he about to style.
We're at this point because a lot of us don't believe that that zakat is collected because we're in a non-Muslim country, or nobody wants to deal with collecting the zakat. It just becomes like this awkward moment. And then even when we get the zakat al-fitr, people are sending food overseas just because they have a system in place. So if the imams understood a little more about economics and finance, it would be a lot easier to be able to attract people to pay their zakat. And the zakat isn't always paid with money. It could be paid with other things, but having knowledge and knowing how to maneuver with those other things and how to budget and monetize those other things is what makes a good leader. And then the idea of waqf, an endowment.
Before you move on to that, let's go back to it again. Now, if the imam doesn't have all of this knowledge, right, then he should surround himself with people who does. Yeah. Whereas though he can actually pour from their support. Henceforth, he says what? Or appoint someone who is qualified to oversee that position. Because sometimes you might don't have all of the knowledge. I mean, no one knows everything. You might not have all the knowledge. So there's nothing wrong with you going out, getting someone from the community who actually, that's their skill. Yeah. They might be an accountant. They might be this person. This is what they do. They're good in investments. So forth. Then you scout them, you hire them, they're trustworthy, you place them in that position, and you check with them.
So from what he's saying here, two things. Should the imam, at the very least, even if it's out of his field of knowledge, should be learning finances on at least a basic level. Number one, right? Number one. Number two, is it upon the imam, when he get these people around him, for them to try to figure out how to invest the sadaqah that's coming in? Because if you got sadaqah coming in every Friday or every week, right, especially on Fridays, but let's say through the course we put money inside the bucket, but definitely on Friday money is coming in, right? Should the imam and the people that the board that he has supposed to have control of, should they be trying to come up with ways of investing that money so people can see it?
That would go back to the effective leadership. Do you understand? Now, how good is that's why when you pick an imam, you have to make sure he's well seasoned.
And this is going into
because he would know exactly what you're talking about.
And this is going into asset management. When you have a waqf, or when you have a mudarraba, when you have the people's money, you have these partnerships, or you have this pot, or this collective. That's asset management. So if there's not a asset management plan, all you're going to end up doing with the money is saying it's not enough to pay the rent.
In other words, it's like this. We should not go scout out a building. We found the building. We stamp Salafiyah on it. We invite different people to come there. The building is in shambles. We're saying it's a masjid, and nobody really know nothing about the Sharia, how it runs, or anything like that. That's not what we should do. We should be more sophisticated than that because our deen is more sophisticated than that. Our deen covers every area, brothers and sisters. This is why Sheikh Salih Fawzan, Hafidhullah, he mentioned that the people who should lead the salat, the people who should give the khutbah, the people who should be in the imam position should be students of knowledge. Do you understand that? Why would the Sheikh say that? Because they going over these, they covering the Sharia. What do you say about Kitab al-Buyur? Finances. That's finances, brother. What do you say about the hadith that deals with that? What do you say about the hadith that deals with these? They should have a well-grounded understanding of that stuff if they're going to occupy the position of being an imam. And then they can do what you're talking about. Okay, let's set up a system. Zakat is still obligatory to pay whether you have a leader or you don't.
Exactly.
You can't just say, okay, I'm going to admit not to pay the zakat unless you fall under that you're not of the nisab. If you don't keep the nisab and it's not mandated upon you, then that's your excuse. But if it's mandated upon you, and you have taken the time, you didn't take the time out to really learn about it, you're gonna, you're gonna have to answer to Allah for that. And that the imam, if he can set up a system, or organization can set up a system, which he appoints so that we can collect those zakat, the funds you're talking about. All of these different
Collected
things.
zakat, created endowment.
Endowment.
Have asset management programs.
Exactly.
And then even with land and lease, and cultivating the land, like the masjid has the opportunity to even get into real estate. Where now the land, the masjid can own land that now has a farm that's producing crops, that's producing, fruits, and then you can lease the land. You can rent the land out, but that money is coming back to a community motto.
And this is why it's important that it's not about personality, so to speak. It's not about who can get the most numbers, who can raise the most funds on the bucket on Friday time, because I've been an imam for 8 years. And this should not be just the main concern. Who can give the most fiery khutbah? Who's going to give the shortest khutbah, get the people out, the people going to get their funds? That should not be it. Some people were even thinking that, no, we're going to use one imam because he's fiery with the khutbah, then we're going to take the other imam and make him lead the salat, and we're going to do this, this, and that. This was some of the talks that were talked about and actually mentioned in certain masjids. Why? Because they didn't really understand this concept of sophistication. You understand? The days of getting masjids, this pandemic should teach us that. Going to get a building, renting the building, paying for it, then getting the people to raise the fundraiser up. Then we're going to give a little bit of classes and keep the classes going.
You're just
to
pouring
offer
the money
service
right back out the window.
Exactly.
The money's coming in the front door, and then you pouring the money right
But
back out
there
the
is
window.
no plan. There is no real plan. I keep saying,
ABC plan.
there is no plan to lay out and say, you know what?
Nor is there transparency. The only transparency that we see is, okay, we raised this much. Look, the needle was going up. Look, we raised that much. Look, we raised that much. That's fine. That lets us know that y'all not spending the money.
Yeah.
But what is the financial plan? How is the money going to work
Well,
for us?
if you're saying you're going to take
long
care
term.
of the community, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the things that Imam's supposed to do was take care of the flock, or they supposed to take care of the everyday needs of people, make it easy, make their lives easier, right? So one of the things that's not being done, one of the main things about a person's life is his money, his wealth, his economics, right? That's one of the main things. That's the muscle of life. That's the only way we move. Without it, it's you're weak. So if you're not setting up a plan, and I'm constantly going to my pocket every week, giving you my money, for 10 years that went by, we still giving sadaqah. And the building still ain't fixed. Stuff still ain't done. We still see no properties being bought. Then what you're doing
and we're being chastised. You're not giving.
No, you're not giving.
You're not giving.
So
you're not
what-
giving. It's like that. I'm giving. I thought.
But what you're doing is that you've never
What's
made
the
my
plan?
life easier. In fact, at some point, it got to be some oppression in that, because at some point, the pressure is always on me.
Well, then it's on both the congregants too, because we're not going to just say it just on the imam. If you see the imam being effective, this is why we talk about effective leadership. If you see the imam over a period of time, this can be brought up as a grievance. This can be a misconduct that you see that this is poor management. This is poor leadership. Why is he not delegating?
And that falls into the community demanding more from their leadership.
Exactly.
And not just taking everything on face value.
Which
Ask
the community
questions.
should do that.
Don't be shy. Ask questions.
The average Muslim, as Sheikh Saleh al-Sheikh brought, the average Muslim should know the basis of their deen. The average Muslim today don't know the basis of their deen. It's just the reality.
But do the community know they can take these grievances and be able to remove an imam, or not even just remove, to be able to have this issue with the imam? Because I think that the boards now are in the way of that.
It's the some part. We're going to get onto that. The community, no matter if the board is there or not, the community is what give life to that masjid.
No doubt.
So if the community voices enough concern that, look, we done, and they do it in certain ways. Trust me, the community sticks in, they do it in certain ways. They get rid of certain things because they know they got to change certain policies because the people are not pleased.
But it's got to be in a constructive way and not a destructive way.
Exactly. It can't be in a way where we see where a riffraff happened. And that's what we've been seeing. We've been seeing a group of brothers get together. They get the building. They rent the building. They get together. Bang, we got it. We got the masjid. We get the people to come. We got the hawk with us. Okay, it's services. It's this going on. We got lectures. Alhamdulillah. Then there occurs something amongst the people that's already running. So then when that riffraff happened, it spills out into the community. Now the community is choosing sides instead of them really trying to work and get to a point where it's though
and allowing the masjid to be a place where people can do the monakisha, healthy monakisha.
They split.
Marriages split and everything with this stuff.
They split and then they go down the street or they go further over to across town and then they open up another masjid doing the same format. And guess what happened? They don't begin to buy land. They don't begin to invest. They don't begin to have property. They don't begin to do any of this asset.
And that's what we got to put it. We can't keep doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results.
That's
because we have a different imam.
That's
it's the same habits. It's the same communal habits.
So at the end of the day, it gets tiresome because when you don't make no more resources, the only resource you have is the people. Yeah. So you you make all these masjids. What you're doing is everybody's struggling over the same resource.
But the reality is nobody want to admit to the fact that they really don't know what they're doing. That's the truth.
Yeah.
The reality is no one want to admit to the fact that I don't really know what I'm doing. So if you really don't know what you're doing, then this is all going to go with the ship going down. If you got a captain on the ship, right? Mm-hmm. And he's an ineffective captain, right? Mm-hmm. Is the ship going to go down?
The ship's going to sink.
Yeah. Right? But if you got
an ineffective CEO, the company's going to go down.
Yeah. So what it should be? It should be what? You want your ship to run smooth, it starts in your what? Your selection process.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Who you select as an effective role for that lead.
And the imam has to manage the assets of the community and not be like and not take on the assets and take on the management for his own personal gain. But this has to, just because the community is not getting at a certain level, okay, y'all not getting it, but I'm gonna show you better than I can tell you, and I'm gonna line my own pockets up with some of these things that I know how to do. No, we have to be moving in the same direction, and everyone's not gonna get it at the same time. But the core competency has to be there. Competency has to be there.
It's crazy because if you look in the urban community, right, we got certain imams that might even be taking way too more than they should get, or they're not even getting what they should be getting, if you want to say what they should be getting from the resources, right? Yeah. And then if you look in the foreign communities, you might see that the imam is making about $60,000, $50,000 a year.
Yeah,
but he's an employee, and he really don't have a real say.
No, he doesn't.
So this is what you're talking about with the board. And the board comes in the way of directing that. So I just want you to understand to make the separation here.
The urban areas don't have the same problem.
They don't have that same problem. But they still have the problem of imam should understand that it's not a job where you're going to be making $60,000, $70,000 a year. Just straight. And you should be more selfless when you're an imam. You should be more selfless when you're an imam. Okay, now can you adopt the trade? No one said you can't. Can you get a skill set? Well, no one said you can't. No one can't say that because you're an imam that you cannot do other areas or other stuff that will create money.
No,
and you can get paid for being an imam. That's fine too.
But it might not be actually
But you should have other skills.
We're talking about the opportunity that an imam has to organize community, take the funds, make certain strategic investments. Because of the riffraff, he says, you know what? I'm just going to keep the money in the pot. But I'm going to borrow money from the masjid, make my own personal moves, take the profit, put it back into the masjid where it belongs.
Yeah, we can't do that. That's all upon trust. And he still got to be...
Right. So all of these things have to be looked at because there's no reason why if an imam is a public servant and he's using the resources of the community to get his status.
Personal gains? No, it's not.
And then you see that imam growing and then the community around him not growing. He has more real estate.
So what's the difference between that and what politicians get locked up for?
No, that's what we see in churches. We see that in churches.
Yeah.
Basically what you're saying, we see that in churches. Once the pubic, once it go around and get filled up, then
Father David's got a new Lincoln there, you know what I mean?
He got a new Cadillac, you know what I'm saying? But I'm saying it's the reality.
I don't believe an imam. I believe an imam should get into real estate or get into investing.
Well, I was going to tell you that
and things
the imam
like that.
should be able to delegate.
But if the community that he's in charge of doesn't have that, then the priority has to be the collective before the personal when it comes to those type of investments.
Exactly. But the thing is, you got to select the right imam that's going to have the right ingredients to do what's necessary. That he's not going to take the funds that is from the community for the masjid base and use it for his own personal gains to get ahead. And then, I owe you the masjid.
Or the relationships.
Exactly. But I'm just saying a lot of that stuff happens, bro, because again, we inexperienced. That's the reality. We're ignorant to certain levels. Our taqwa is not where we need it to be, right? And the fact that, what else? We're young. We can be arrogant. All of these things is a combination, which shows us that we should do what? Because we know we have these deficiencies across the board, we should work with each other even more. All right, you strong in this area, I need to work with you on that. You're strong in that area, I need to work with you on that. Which shows that we should be more unified because okay, I can't trust you with a lick. He can't manage the money.
You can't touch the bread. You know what I mean?
So I'm not going to put him in. I'm not going to put him on the bread. But he's real good for delegating this. So I'm going to put him in. And this is what he is. He's a facilitator. He's going to appoint the right people in the right position to make sure things are going to be run right. All right, so you mentioned here a counselor and advisor. An imam should be someone you can go to and speak to. Not like the priests and stuff like that, but you should be able to get some advice. She's seen as a person who advises and wisdom is sought from time to time by virtue of his spiritualism and intellectual erudition. He should be contacted for guidance on marital matters, political principles, morality, religion, contemporary issues, etc. Not all of our imams come with a full package. So, I mean, don't just take this at face value and just say, okay, I'm going to start looking at every imam that I know in the masjid and start blasting them out.
But this is the criteria. This is the catalyst that lets you know that you need to work with others. You can't put yourself on an island. You can't become an isolationist because we don't have a full package imam.
We don't have a full package imam.
And most of our imams are young.
And it's known. This is a fact, and I'm not making it up. It's known as a gripe and the grievances in the urban indigenous community for years that we cannot keep an imam no more than 2 years to 5 years. This is known. This is not something I'm making up, and it's not any of that. This is real. We turn over imams like sometimes like we turn over our sneakers. Imams is turned over. Okay, we got one in, we're getting one out. We got one in, we're getting one out. We got one in, we're getting out. There's no time for growth or community development when you keep changing the figurehead. See, this is what you need to understand what we're talking about. The imam is the figurehead of that community. If you remove that figurehead, you remove the direction of that community. If the community is going to be based off who got the biggest pockets, and sometimes this happens. An individual got a lot of money, he goes start a masjid, and now we're looking at the hum what to do. He don't got no ilm of sharia, he got no ilm of knowledge, he got no ilm of any of things or what to do, but because he got the bread, he's supposed to be making all the decisions? Nah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That don't make sense neither. So we have to really look at this stuff and say, no, just because you got the bread doesn't give you right. This is why Sheikh Salim Tawil in Germantown, what he said is, I don't advise a person to give, who is the wealthiest, to give the most and contribute the most to the situation, because this is, you run into this problem.
Well, he started thinking that now that means that he gave the most, now he can make all the decisions.
Now he can make all the decisions. So that don't work like that. It needs to be someone who can represent that figurehead to its full capacity. And if they can't represent it to its full capacity, then he delegates to the right appropriate people so that we can get to some of these.
You know what's sad though? The same what you just mentioned about in and out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the same social ills that exist in the indigenous Muslim community or the indigenous people in general, right? We bring that same, unfortunately, those same social ills that we have as indigenous people, Muslim or not, you can see those same ills in the function of the masjid.
What this also shows us
you can
what?
See it.
What does this show you? This shows you that Islam is not just religion. You know? It's not just, what I mean by that is everything just spiritualism. There's no secular in it at all. There's no politics. There's no socialism. There's no this. Everything is just, that's wrong. No, the Prophet ﷺ dealt with all facets of life. Islam deals with all facets of life. Henceforth, we have hadith to deal with that. So if you look at this, this is not that. Like we get ready to tell you, one of the jobs of an imam is to be a spokesman for the Muslim community. He speaks on behalf of that community. Go ahead.
Yeah, an imam is the person to be contacted to make the statement on issues relating to Islam and the Muslims. He should be contacted to provide sound opinions on national and international issues, and whatever the imam says represents the authentic position of the entire community. Before commenting on issues, an imam must have consulted the Quran and the Sunnah as reference for his verdict or ruling, and in the consultation with his eminent followers. He must issue press releases regularly in response to national and international issues.
Now, before anyone say that, okay, the imam got too much power here, and if anyone say that the Quran and Sunnah meaning that the person should go in there himself and get it, we want to say this. If the individual don't have the necessary tools to go into the book of Allah and in the Sunnah to extract these things, then he should consult with the people of ilm. All right? He should consult with the people of knowledge so he can get a better understanding of that. But at the very least, he went back to the Kitab wa Sunnah and got the authentic position what should be said, which shows us that there is a structure here. So anyone from that community should not be just speaking on issues just to be speaking because how they feel. They should leave it to the imam if they want to address it to him and say, listen, imam, we have this situation going on. They are robbing people in the community. All right? People or houses or things are getting robbed. What is the position of Islam on robbery? What is the position of Islam on burglary? what's his position in Islam, and then he issue a statement that's public on behalf of that Muslim community that this is our stance, and this is meaning Islamic stance from the Kitab wa Sunnah, and this is the correct way and how we view those.
And you know, I get that.
Or the Muslims. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What you can get from this statement too is being consolidated, like we've been saying, consolidation. Because check this out. Say if you got, it's 80, from what the last count I counted was, I did some research, it's about 80 masjids in the Philadelphia area. About 80.
Okay.
Each one has an imam, right? There's 80 imams. So when something comes up and you got to go to Mayor Kinney, Governor Wolf, we're going to send all 80 imams? Or should we consolidate and have an organization where now we're going to say, all right, everybody's going to choose this guy here because he's the most qualified. So when something comes up in our community, crime or domestic abuse, anything like that, we can now take it to Mayor Kinney or take it to Governor Wolf. This one person is speaking for everybody, though.
And it represents
You understand
all
what I'm
80
saying?
masjids.
Well,
and
somebody might argue, and I'm being honest, somebody might argue and say, well, okay, not out of all of those 80 masjids, you're going to have people who's really sticking to Kitab and Sunnah the way that the Salaf understood it.
They're gonna make
right?
the argument.
So the argument might be you might have some Shiites out of them 80 masjids. You might have some people who might be such and such, some got some deviant views, deviant views, like the Ahbash.
Yeah, which we're not
Right?
mentioning talking about them, but yeah.
But so then what we do is we narrow it down to the communities that are already in agreement with one another. If you are in agreement with one another, then you should do some consolidation amongst yourselves. Whereas though now somebody from your community, now out of those 80 masjids, you might have about 20 or 25 masjids that have the same views. Out of those 25 masjids, those imams should at least come together where they're, okay, we're going to appoint someone to speak for on behalf of the 25 masjids. And this is sort of what we've seen with Imam Asim. A lot of people, I mean, just being honest, if you look at what they were doing with the Ashura masjids, and they had a lot of different masjids under them, this is what they were moving towards, these guidelines.
Yeah, they were.
You know what I'm saying? And this, like, when we make these statements, I just want to make this disclaimer. Whenever you hear us make these statements of certain imams or certain personalities that were in historical reference, this doesn't mean that we are now promoting that particular imam or that person. But for historical reference and for fact reference,
we're trying to give tezkiyah to go benefit from them at this
we
level.
We are just saying that this exactly what happens. And if you look at the Imam Asim in that community for years, they've been working with some of these preliminaries. Yeah. These guidelines of consolidating certain masjids, working under a certain banner, and moving it as a collective body.
And they get things from the city too. They get things done politically and everything.
Exactly. Regardless of that, regardless of that particular person individually. I'm not talking about anyone individually, looking into them.
And it may be a person who's good at this dialogue or just going back and forth, and it's these, he might not, like you said, might not be the most religious, or might be the most knowledgeable, but he's trustworthy. And he has the ability to activate community ideas. He has the ability to organize. He knows the people. He networks well. He's in certain business affairs.
Well, the imam should be an activist.
Yeah.
To some level.
But that's what you got from some of those older imams. So those older imams were ridiculed for their lack of hiv, or their lack of eloquency in the Arabic language. But what they were actually good at,
they had the respect of the community.
They were political. They were community organizers.
But see, we overlooked that because we start thinking that no, if it don't come in this format. See, it's one time we got caught on that. You have to be overseas. You have to have connection with the scholars, and you have to have knowledge. Yeah. But that don't necessarily mean you have experience.
And who says those brothers don't have connections with scholars?
No, but listen to me. That don't mean you necessarily have experience, what you're saying. That don't mean you necessarily have diplomacy. Just because you might have some Islamic knowledge. That don't mean you might know how to deal with this group of people, that group of people, or in certain areas. That don't mean that. But we didn't think about that. We just thought about that brother's a gun. He stood overseas for 5 years, 10 years.
He gonna know what to do.
He gonna know what to do. No, he don't.
He's not your savior.
Well, every organization, whether political one, even organized crime, all of that stuff has levels to it, right? Yeah. So if you got the person who has the Islamic knowledge, the student knowledge up top, and he runs the spiritual, everyday religious affairs, then you have those people who are the community activists, the community activators. Then you have the people that know finance. They're underneath that, the imams, right? They're underneath them. So now when they making moves, because they are qualified to make those moves financially and politically and socially, that now when they making moves, now they got the reference point to keep them from going right or left. They go to the imam and say, listen, this is the political move we want to make, the social move we want to make, the financial move we want to make. Does it go against the Sharia? Simple. The arithmetic is 2 + 2.
But no, but see, that's not the reason why it's not being done. A part of the indigenous urban community masajids that are quote unquote sticking to a certain format in agreements with Kitab, with Sunnah, Fahm, Salaf, is because, like Abu Uwais Rahimahullah said, and like many people said before, it got something to do with the love of leadership. Some people don't want to defer to other individuals. Some people don't want to place other individuals above them. It can be jealousy. It can be ignorance. It can be we want the resources for ourselves. If we put the shine, if we put the spotlight on this individual or that organization or that masjid, it would take from the resources that we are. And it's funny because the masjids that you see people pointing the fingers at, that they are not upon Kitab wa Sunnah Fahm Salaf, they have some of these things we're talking about in line. And that's what the point you were just making. They know how. They might not have the most knowledge. They might not have most this, but they know how to do the groundwork. But the funny thing about it is, if you look on the other side with the people that saying they do have the knowledge and they do take from the scholars, they don't have no organizational structure. It seems as the structure there is not found. No organizational structure is not there. That's a problem. That's an aib, what we say. It's an aib. It's a blemish. It's like an ugly stain there. You understand what I'm saying? And it actually contradicts the fact that you have the right knowledge. Because if you have the right knowledge, you're moving the right way, correct? So, a criteria for appointing an imam, and this is where we want to get to the crux. I don't want to go too long because I want to be able to get to this point here. Islam takes pride on the fact that it has a reliable source from which it draws guidance and direction. The glorious Quran, the Hadith have clearly spelled out the criteria for appointing a would-be imam. What's the criterion? How do we appoint an imam? So-and-so was overseas for 5 years. Do we point him? So-and-so, my man, I'm telling you, he don't get down with bid'ah. Do we point him? So-and-so, you know what I'm saying, I'm recommending him. This is what it is. He know this area better than anyone else. Do we appoint him? What is the criterion? What's the guidelines that we point in selecting imam? In the Quran, Allah Jalla says, have you not thought about the group of the children of Israel after Musa, when they said to the prophet of theirs, appoint for us a king, and we were struggling Allah's way. And their prophet said to them, indeed Allah has appointed Talut, Saul, as a king over you. They said, how can he be a king over us when we are better fitted than him for the kingdom? And he has not been given enough wealth. You see this? Allah Jalla wa'ala talks about this in Surah Baqarah. Look at the points that they are levying against the one that was selected to be a king. They said, he ain't even got no money. I mean, we richer than him.
He got no bread, man.
And he's not even more befitting. He's weak in this, he's weak in that, right? And he has been given enough wealth. He said, rarely Allah has chosen him above you and has increased him in knowledge and stature. And Allah grants his kingdom to whom he wills. All right? This is Surah Baqarah, verse 246 to 247. When Allah Jalla wa'ala said to Ibrahim, rarely I make you an imam for mankind. We quoted this ayah earlier. Ibrahim asked, and my offspring? Allah said, my promise is not meant for the unjust. All right? Jabir radiallahu ta'ala anhu reported that hold on here. I think I skipped the whole portion here. I did. All right. Furthermore, the Prophet ﷺ gave the following advice to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. Said that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, the one who recites the book of Allah most should be the imam of the people. If they are equal in recitation, then the one who knows the sunnah most, then the earliest of them to immigrate. And if they are equal in immigration, then the oldest among them in Islam. And no one should lead another in prayer in his domain or sit in his place of honor. This is collected by Muslim. That's important to understand this because you was talking about the elders. So elder does take a precedent in Islam as well. But here, when you find two people who are equal in the book of Allah, their knowledge of the book of Allah, their recitation, their so forth like that. And when I want you to hear something in this hadith, Sheikh Salih Fawzan explains this. When he talk about Qurra during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, it doesn't mean someone who can recite. All right? People get that misunderstanding. It just don't mean the person who can recite the Quran. When it's talking about the Qurra, meaning the person who understood, the fuqaha, the people who understood. If they was Qurra, they understood. And this is a real important point I'm getting ready to make because Sheikh Urthaymeen goes into this about appointing an imam. All right, so you don't pick a person because he knows the most Quran. He can know the most Quran, but he don't even know the ahkam of salat. If he makes a mistake in the prayer, what he going to do? He don't know. So the one who might know less than him in Quran might know the ahkam of salat, then he is picked it over the one who know more of Quran and don't know ahkam of salat. You understand? Because ahkam of salat is really important. What do I do if I miss a ruku'? What do I do if I miss a sajda? What do I do if I do? You know what I mean? So that's important. So
It shows that knowledge and experience go hand in hand.
exactly. So all of these things have to be placed in there. Okay, so he says, Jabir radiallahu ta'ala anhu reported the Prophet said a woman is never to lead a man in prayer, neither a Bedouin desert Arab to lead an immigrant, nor an unchaste man to lead a believer. This is collected by Ibn Majah. All right, on the basis of the divine ethics quoted above, the following are the criteria for appoint a capable imam. Number 1, the imam must have iman. The candidates vying for being considered for the post of imam must be a Muslim who believes in the Islamic fundamentals without doubt. A disbeliever cannot lead the Muslim community. All right? A disbeliever cannot lead the Muslim community. I'm going to add to this. A staunch innovator who calls to his innovation should not be appointed as an imam. All right? Someone who calls to their innovation. Someone who says that there's another prophet after Muhammad. Someone who says that the Quran is created. Someone who says that Allah Jalla wa Ala doesn't rise above his throne. Someone who says these different types of things, then we're not looking for him to be the imam, because he goes against the eternal structure of the belief in the tenets of Al-Islam. It's important to understand. All right, number 2, knowledge. A would-be imam must be highly knowledgeable. He must be versed in the ulum al-Quran, the science of Quran, hadith, fiqh to some level, tafsir to some level, Dafaqatul Islamiyya, Islamic civilization, siyasa, politics, adab, ethics, and morality. He must be well seasoned.
Yeah, there you go. You must be well.
You must be well seasoned.
You didn't just say politics, did you?
Yes, siyasa.
You have to,
You didn't just say
you have
siyasa,
to
did
know
you?
and understand politics.
He must. I mean,
Islamic politics and the politics of the land that you're living in.
I was an imam by default, and I'm telling you right now, I ain't had half of that. I'm telling you, I've been an imam for 8 years only because no one else was there. It was by default, and I was told by another scholar, Sheikh Abdullah Majid. He told me that whenever someone who's qualified and willing to take the position come, then I should step down and allow those persons to do it. You know what I mean? So even if you look at that on that level, you don't understand. I know I don't have half of this stuff right here. You know what I mean? You have to be seasoned, and that will eliminate half of the imams we got in the city.
Yeah, that will eliminate. Yeah. Half the masjids be empty.
But a lot of our older imams have these packages, like Imam Nuruddin. Now he has a lot here, but he may not have the Quranic science, or he might not have as much knowledge as some of the students. But when it comes to politics, when it comes to Islamic civilization, ethics, morality, a lot of those older imams, they had that stuff, but they were lacking in some knowledge, knowledge that could have been that could be that they can get. It's not too late for them to get that knowledge, but they have more of the total package than not, and we place too much importance on their eloquency and their head.
We should abort the knowledge should have been mixed with their experience, and if we either mix the knowledge with their experience, then the communities would have been a lot better.
But based off what you just said, the experience and the understanding takes precedence over the pound for pound heft.
Yeah. What I mean by that is this: that the younger generations do have the information. They have a lot of the information as far as what the elders might not have had.
Yeah, but they don't have the leadership.
They don't have the leadership. So what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, you can meet in the middle. You can bring that experience and mix it with that knowledge and build a community.
But they don't want to do that because they're ousting out those older people because they don't have that knowledge that is absent of.
But
that's what they're doing.
Our students of knowledge could be a board for those guys.
Exactly.
If I was already the imam and I'm here, and if I'm not doing if I'm staying away from the major things that we're being warned from, and I'm just not.
Let the old head stay the imam. I'm saying that you need to mix these communities together.
No, you're saying the same thing you're saying.
That's what I'm saying.
But what I'm trying to tell to you guys, the reason why that's not happening is because they're outsing them out. They don't even want to go the route of cooperation with them.
Yeah, there you go.
You got to understand again about leadership, man. Leadership is important. If you even look at the ayah, why was your point him? Why is he more befitting
Same
than us?
thing they saying right now.
People don't want to give up the delegation of leadership. People don't want to give that up. Okay, I want to go under his domain. You got a masjid that's already established. They're established with the state. They're established with the city. They got schools, institutions. They got restaurants. They got different things they already have. They own their building. When it's a crisis like this is right now, they're not worrying about the masjid not being there after the pandemic. They're still there. But you got brothers who know that this masjid is there, who know that this masjid exists, but they ain't going to go cooperate with that masjid because they're going to make up everything that they can make up. Oh yeah, those brothers, they ex Nation of Islam. Oh, those brothers, they this and that. They lean towards that. But the real crux of the matter is whether they're that or not. The real crux of the matter is I got to go under their banner. I got to go under their rule. I got to go under their what's the name? Because when I start to deal with them, I'm still not going to have the full power.
So the community is not the focus. A person's ego and personality is the focus.
So you have to be patient. All right, you have to go underneath his rule now. He may say some things that you may not want to hear now. He may do some things that you don't want to hear now. But by working with him, befriending him, being able to advise him, you're going to work towards the ideal scenario. Then guess what? If he trusts you, what's he going to do when he's too old to give the kuppar?
Man, Sheikh Islam
He's going to say, young buck, go up there. Now it's time for you to do some of those ideas you were trying, that you wanted to employ. Okay, now it's your turn. We're ready. The people around us are ready to hear that from you now.
Sheikh Islam and Taymiyyah went so far to say that it's not even permissible to come into a town and ask the imam of a masjid, what's your minhaj? What's your upon? People don't even understand this stuff. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? We're using this as a basis of not doing ta'awun, to work with one another. Mm-hmm.
But we see the fitna of not listen to Sheikh what they mean when he said that. We see the opposite effect of doing the opposite of what he said. When brothers come back overseas, first thing, old heads is on bid'ah, old heads is off it, the masjid's off it, and now we all these decades later, and we still can't even shake each other's hands because...
No, not even that. All these decades later, we don't own our buildings.
Nope, there you go.
We don't have no investments. There's no waqfs. No endowments. There's no assets management. That's what we want to say.
There's no political advantages.
There's no political advancements. There is none of these different things.
And remember, we're doing this series to prove that financial literacy can save the masjids in these scenarios. But if we don't go back and look at, well, did anything go wrong? Were we on track at any point? What can we compare it to?
By not working together, we harmed ourselves more.
Yeah, we decades behind.
And that's what happened.
Behind, no doubt.
It wasn't the time to come back. And I want to give this advice sincerely, man, to anybody that's in the field. If Allah bless you to come back to any area, you don't have to look for a masjid to open. That's not the first go-to.
Work with those pre-existing organizations and be patient.
And be patient. Because reality, sometimes you're putting a more responsibility on yourself that's not even needed.
Right.
And even if you say you're in an area that needs a masjid, be honest. Do it really needs that masjid?
And there's a call
because it might be a masjid already there that's working with certain guidelines.
Repelling the harm takes precedence over bringing about a good.
Good, exactly.
So you may have all of this good that you want to do, but what harm can come as a result of me competing with this larger masjid that already has a lot of these things in place?
It's some masajids that we know for 10 years the building been the same.
10 years, the building
10 years, 11 years, the building still been in shambles.
And the community is to blame because the community is being told they're not giving enough. You're not giving enough.
But the building's still the same. There's nothing being grabbed. So you gotta think real quick. You gotta really think. Ineffective leadership kills the actual boat. It sinks it. So that's why we got to go back again. You don't have to puff your chest up. I know we're filling in some areas here. I understand. I was in the Imam position. I was there by default. I was deficient in every step there is. There's certain things, I got advice was, but I was deficient. But the reality is we need to stop picking our chest up like we really know. We're just youth.
And give credit where credit is due.
And we work with those people that's already established.
And prioritize.
And advise them. But trust me, because most of the time you're going to find that the people that's already established, they might not be so off it like you think they are. They might be willing.
They're just not moving this. And that's what the thing with always. I talk to my dad all of the time.
Yeah.
And my dad doesn't move as fast as I move. I might have an idea, and I'm like, Dad, look, we could do this, bop, 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 bop.
Yeah.
And he's like, hold up.
Slow down.
All right, I'm taking it in.
Yeah.
And then maybe a year later, he might grab me by the shoulder and say, look,
now I'm ready for the idea.
That was a nice idea. I see some of the ideas that some of those things are starting to be trend. They're trending now.
Yeah.
There's some trends I see. Right. That's what old heads do. They're not impatient. They take their time, and if we don't allow them to take that time, we're going to miss out on that wisdom.
All right, I want to mention just some of this stuff, and we'll stop after all of the criteria for selecting an imam, because we're going a little bit too long. Leadership traits. So an imam must have leadership traits. The post of an imam is better occupied by someone or somebody who has a natural and acquired traits of leadership, like wisdom, eloquence, stature. He's charismatic, charisma, and ability to be independent, judgment, decisions. He should also possess diplomacy, humility, resoluteness, and patience. See these qualities he should have? He should be someone who is an example. He know how to pray. How can you be an imam and you are not in tune with the neighborhood? You're not in tune with anyone. You don't want to talk to this person. You don't want to talk to that person. Oh, everybody gets upon bid'ah because they don't see your way. But you just put a blanket over them. And you haven't even went to go contact with them or sit down with them to see if they actually upon bid'ah or upon innovation. And then actually,
And Allah uses,
if you can buy and engage and deal with the non-believers, you can buy and engage with upon people who might got some heretic views.
and Allah can aid the deen.
What's more
Allah
heretic
can
than
aid,
shirk and kufr?
Allah can aid the deen with the non-Muslim.
I mean, that's
So
true.
if there's a Muslim who you don't deem to have the correct aqidah, but he has the other skill sets to get our communities to move forward, why wouldn't you work with him? Like you said, you'll work with a kafir, you'll go buy and sell with a kafir, but you won't work with this Muslim because of the image of it, the imagery of it.
Yeah, but no, that's a hide. We got to start really looking behind
No, it's
things.
about
That's
a brand.
ploy.
Yeah, it's about a
That's
brand.
a ploy. It's not really about he's upon bid'ah, because that was the case. I wouldn't work with the kufr, the kafir. The non-believer, I wouldn't deal with him. So it's not really the bid'ah that I'm really trying to stay away from. It's the fact of control, power, leadership, all of these different things I don't want to delegate to someone else. I don't want to be subservient under someone else. I want to make sure I run it the way I want to run it, and then this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to stamp myself as the authority, and I'm going to make sure that everyone else that is not with me is either against me indirectly because they're not coming with the same thing I'm coming with.
Well, the thing about it is
put
that
them
it's
outside
just
and
about
ostracize them.
establishing a brand. So
Yeah.
say if I want to establish my brand, I'm not going to go I'm not going to go underneath your brand, and then I got to work from out of your brand to establish my brand. I want to establish my brand. So you're going to get in the way of that.
Yep.
So I'm going to go establish my brand over here.
Yeah.
And so everybody can come check my brand out.
Exactly.
I don't think, because you got two sets of people who say they claim to follow Sunnah here. You got the real extreme version where everybody's a deviant. Then you got the less extreme version of that in the city where they don't put that on everybody. So we got the two sides, but both sides
Are still not working with
they're
everybody.
still not
by and
working with
large.
everybody by and large because it's still about brands.
All right, now what would stop someone making irrational decisions or rash decisions or not moving, like y'all said, counterproductive, not doing certain things? That would be the next criterion that we look for Imam. Age and maturity. Big bonus here. Age and maturity.
A potential occupant of the past of an imam must be an adult.
Post of the Imam, yeah. Go ahead. The post of an Imam
Okay.
must be an
A
adult.
potential occupant of the post of an imam must be an adult, as a minor of today would be able to manage the
May
affairs.
not be able to
may
manage
not be
the
able to
affairs of
manage
the
the
Muslim
affairs of the Muslim community.
This is truly, really important. Just because somebody just fresh graduated from the university or came from a sheikh camp in Yemen or in Egypt or something like that, we don't put them in leadership roles immediately. We actually going to delegate it in the right way. So he might can help out with a class. He might can help out with leading the prayer. He might can help out with helping with advising here.
Or
But
researching.
putting them, researching, but placing them in a leadership role is not the right thing to do. Because he have to have the maturity and the wisdom behind certain things to deal with certain
Need some
things.
seasoned salt on them fries.
So when,
You know what I mean?
So when two people,
Need some seasoned salt on them
when
fries,
you
man.
have two people that are equally qualified
To hold the post.
of an imam, the older is preferred from the point of view of Islam.
And we brought the hadith early of Jabir. Okay? You look at if they equal, then you look at the one who immigrated first, or you look at the one who was older 1st. So before you move so fast, I just want to stop and make these points. So you look at that. So that plays a high role because maturity has to play the central role. You keep mentioning why the youth don't want to work with the older people. That's all you keep saying earlier. Why the youth don't want to work with the older people who already have certain things in play. Think about it. The youth are a little bit more hasty. They are irrash. If you look at what happened during the time of Yusuf al-Thaqafi, when he was actually appointed to be the Amir. And we know what happened with transpired. There was some group of the Sahaba or the Tabi'een who actually wanted to rebel against the rulership of Yusuf, right? And they went to Anas ibn Malik, the companion. And this is something that the ulama use a lot. We can learn a lot from this. To show us about youth, age, hastiness, and all of this stuff and maturity. They went to Anas ibn Malik and they said that they was going to, because what he was doing, it wasn't right. His leadership was ineffective, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he told them to stand down. You know what I mean? You seen senior Sahabas and companions still was rolling with leaders that may or may not have been doing everything according to the Kitab wa Sunnah. They had that patience you was talking about. They waited a little bit. And what happened was that group of people that he told to stand down that didn't stand down, they seen them that they were actually court, prison, and executed.
Yeah, they were.
Because they did not behave what? They didn't even move on the advice. The companions wasn't like, look, we ain't going to rebel against the leader because the leader is there. So that don't mean I come back from overseas. I come to Philadelphia. I look around. Oh, all right. The old heads, they got the bad shit there. They got the bad shit there. Yeah, they ain't really going to come with what I'm going to come with. Yeah, I'm going to get some people together. We're going to open up this masjid here, and then we're going to call this masjid the Masjid al-Haq. Yeah. That's not what we're going to do. That's irrash. That's not maturity. Maturity is, look, let's look at who got the best strategic position in the city that's real connected with all levels, as far as on the political level, as far as on the social level, as far as on this level, that level. And now let me see how I can work with that community.
Longevity.
Exactly, so that we can solidify ourselves. I guarantee you a lot of people that's coming back aren't doing that. They're being put in the hot seat so fast because of where they was at. Yeah, I need you, my man.
It would make sense to do something like that, because if you look at doing that the way you're saying, come back and look at who's more connected and where can your da'wah be more successful at, as far as it getting, because it's all about the success of the call. You want to save somebody's soul, right? So if that's the case, then you go to the place where that can be done, where that can be nurtured at. So if you go to a place and they politically set up, socially set up, financially set up, now the correct creed that you believe that you have is going to now reach out to more places, more prominent places. So it's going to reach out to the hood that it's in.
I'm going to read this part. I want to read that.
Right? It's going to reach out to the inner city that the masjid is in, but it's also going to touch who?
I'm going to read this part.
Right? It's also going to touch what? It's going to, now the mayor and the governor, all of them know about your call. You know why? Because you at a masjid that they deal with all the time. No. So your call is being known by the mayor, city council, aldermen. It just makes sense to do it that way, man.
Okay, so here we have that this is because human behavior is complex and erratic. We all can agree to that. It requires experience and maturity to administer and to lead mankind. All right. I know that it's also mentioned in the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith that he says that the prophets and the messengers was taught as what? Shepherds. All of them were shepherds. And the reason why they were shepherds is also taught what? Being a shepherd taught you how to do what?
Yeah, how to organize,
how to manage, how large groups of people, and stuff like that. Anyway, because it's complex. So there is a quote that is actually mentioned. The statement is, you can shepherd 100 sheep with one stick, but you cannot shepherd one man with 100 sticks. This quote shows how complex human nature is. Therefore, anybody put in charge of the affairs of human beings must be matured and experienced. All right, number 5, we're trying to really wrap it up here. Number 5 is male preserve. Okay, male preserve. The post of an imam is exclusively for a male. I know we live in a liberal society. We live in a liberal society. I know we live in a society where they say they pride themselves on liberty. They pride themselves on feminism, endorsing feminism and all that. And I know that we're going to have people coming up nowadays. We do. We have it. Wallahi, we have it. People are going to find any backdoor they can to do what they want to do. And we read the hadith earlier where the Prophet said no woman can lead a man in what? The hadith is Ibn Majah. Can lead a man in prayer. Also, there's another hadith the Prophet said that you don't pick a woman as a what? A leader of the community, right? You're going to have, and we had Amina Wadud, but we got many other females right now who wants to be in the imam position. That's not how Islam actually encouraged that. So, you know, you want to look at those things.
No, I'm with you.
All right, so we already know
Somebody said that was a hadith. That wasn't a hadith. That was a statement.
That was an actual statement about the shepherd, 100 sheep.
That wasn't a hadith.
Yeah, that wasn't a hadith. All right, so now the background. An imam should come from a civilized environment, as this will impact positively on his behavior, outlook, speech, thinking, and world view. This explains why the Prophet ﷺ prefers somebody from the town to a savage or a peasant from the desert. Okay, now, Sheikh Salih Fawzan laid out 5 main things when looking for an imam. You look at their background, you look where they at, the apple from the tree, all of this stuff goes in alignment with that. So you do want to know about a person's background. How they've been raised, how they've been cultivated. And that plays a major part, because how they're going to deal with all of these responsibilities, how they're going to carry them out, all right?
They messing around, man. There's going to be no imams left.
You know what I mean? All right, and we can be honest to see the chaos that we in now. All right.
The dynamicism.
Right, an imam must
acquaint himself with changes in the world via Islam. He must be current in global happenings, and he must also be able to tackle new issues on Islam. So that's the fickle walker. It's the current events. But being able to look at those through the lens of Islam and give the proper understanding to it to help the people that are following you understand what's going on. Right now, everybody's getting their news from social media. They're getting their perspectives from fake news or conspiracy theories. Well, we need our imams to be able to look at these things that's troubling our community and then be able to process it and give it back through the eyes of Islam so that we all are on the same accord.
They never seen it as important to begin with. The stuff you're mentioning, if the imams in the masjid don't even see these things as important, whether it's talking about politics, social things, history, lineage, they don't see these things as important. And then the sources some of the sources they get it from, like say if an imam does see something as important as history, but he's reading textbooks from universities or high school, he's still not helping me none.
Right.
So you understand what I'm saying?
In this country, an imam should know Black history because the majority of
before y'all go into all of that, if the imam don't know, he should create a unit where they can collectively dedicate to research those issues.
Yep.
That's one thing we keep forgetting, that we need to create bodies of units. Some of the brothers actually made this point. I know a lot of students made the same point, that we should work towards creating a body that can represent the Muslims at large on these areas, such as marriage, such as divorce, such as different things, ahkam, such as fiqh waqi', things that happen, how the Muslims should behave. These things should actually be put in play. And now the imam job is to spark that. Now, if you look at Abu Uwais a little bit, rahimahullah, right? They say one of the good qualities that Abu Uwais had was what? He used to always know who to put together for an event, who to put together. Okay, I want you to speak here, I want you to talk here. He used to know how to do that, be a facilitator. So one of the things you want to do is, as an imam, if you don't have all the answers, you want to be able to at least spark and place people in the right area so that stuff can be done. All right? This would make the role of imam way much more. We'll stop there, and inshallah ta'ala, next time we're going to go into the masjid officials and functions. We're going to talk about some of the offices that is occupied by the masjid, how that is developed. But the imam, I want to give us some of this. The imam is the figurehead. All right. Now, I know right now it's been pragmatic since going back in the 90s, where we might have some personalities who are natural and people follow and gravitate towards that, and we've seen how that chaotic that can be. But we also have, as our brother advises, that you can look at it not just from an imam standpoint, you can look at it from an organizational point of view. Whereas the brother was explaining to us that if it's pragmatic for people to rally under behind a one man, they might rally under behind an organization. And if that organization is working with the guidelines of the Quran and the Sunnah and the understanding, and with the Sharia, then they can maybe get some things done and be able to cover some things by the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala. Also the imam, what else we covered? Also the imam also should, how would this help in relevant time, is that we should be thinking now of more so consolidating amongst ourselves. And the ummah should be pushing towards this. People that are in respective communities, you should be pushing towards your local imam to see what is their cooperation with other masajids that are on the same line. Because that plays a significant role for when a pandemic take place, we can get past the stage of renting our buildings and owning our buildings. It always should be a phase. The phase should always be laid out. Phase one, okay, if we got to go into this temporarily to rent, we go in there and we temporarily rent. But we got to go in either with the landlord or the owners. How can we get the building from?
Unfortunately, you'll find
how can we buy
our
land?
Communities are always on the defensive. We're never on the offensive. And that's a problem. That's problematic. When anything happens, you're always on the defensive. That's bad news, because if you're not even, that's why you need organization. You need to be pre-planning. You can't stop the qadr from happening, obviously, but pre-plan.
Allah says in Surah Al-Anfal, make what? Make preparations.
Make preparations. Pre-plan, because when stuff like this happens, you have some things. You have some safety nets in place. But unfortunately, you always see us with our hands up, back to the.
And this exposes us. This pandemic exposed whatever safety nets that we thought we had in play. It exposed us.
They sure didn't have any. Not like they had holes in them joints. They was made out of spider webs. You know what I mean? Let's keep this real, man.
No, but there are some buildings. There are some brothers are holding strong. There are some communities that still have their buildings. They own their buildings. May Allah reward them. But there are some things that they want to solidify, that we want to work towards getting back together. I would love to see, before Allah take my life, one big Eid, one masjid accommodate us for one Jumu'ah. I would love to see those type of things really take place. That's when we will start making some changes on a larger scale, where people will really start flocking into Islam because they will see the position and the strength of the Muslims in that society. You know what I'm saying? We can probably get to that. We're going to talk about zakat, inshallah ta'ala, maybe in the next show. We're going to go into that. We touched on it a little bit, but we're going to really go into detail about how can you set up zakat al-fitr. Not zakat al-fitr, but zakat, and how can you set up Baytul Mal? How can you set up a Baytul Mal without having a ruler? All right, we're going to go into that. How can you do that? Because zakat is still obligatory. So we want to do
and that's something that Allah gave us to create, to create, to transfer wealth, to be able to employ, to be able to get certain things done for the community, and the idea of the waqf. If you have a good intention, you can have an endowment for all kinds of things. They had endowments just for horses.
Yep.
So if we're one body, now we can look at the needs of this particular fraction or this particular section or this group of people, and now everybody can come together and figure out ways to put some resources behind it.
Instead of refuting Khadija's funeral home, we could be sitting there sending people out to learn the stuff of mortician and getting the license that's needed, getting plots and stuff so that you can have a funeral that you want to quote unquote have according 100% to the Sunnah, right? Yeah. So what we do is we point our fingers at the institutions that's already established, the people that already put the work in, but they're Muslims. So we point our fingers at them and say how they're all bad, but we can't even get one thing up together to go do the same thing.
Instead, look at the positives of it.
Yeah,
she's a Muslim woman and an indigenous woman that owns a funeral home.
That she went and got the license for. She did this, she did that.
Got the education for, and she could teach all women how to do it.
Yeah, but all we do is point fingers. Don't go over there. Don't stand over there. But the people that you're telling us to stay away from is the people who are more solidified than you. That when your ship is getting ready to fall, you're not telling us that you're on the low, knocking on their door, trying to see if you can get a check.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That you're sending your kids to their school. That when Masjid was up, you was in their iftars. Come on, let's be real. So you got to really look at that. Let's push and stop taking the sources from the people, pocketing it, doing all that, and start really putting it into our own communities and building it up by the permission of Allah. And yes, I am taking shots. I'm taking shots at everybody, even myself. Taking shots at the fact that Islam required us to be one unit, one body, and we need to be able to do that. And the longer we keep doing the things that we have been doing, it's going to keep falling. It's going to keep falling like that. Yeah. Ineffective leadership, inexperienced youth,
the lack of financial literacy,
and
the lack of diplomacy.
These
are the things that can get us on track and going into a concentrated effort to having some sort of power, some type of izzah in our own community.
And really be helping out.
But before we forget, two things. Go on to Facebook and join the Night Shift podcast.
Yeah.
Because we want to start going live from the Night Shift podcast on Facebook.
Yeah. So just go there. If you're not already a member, please go ahead and sign up and follow us for the Night Shift podcast.
And we shoot this from Search and Rescue, General Store 3101 Glenwood Avenue.
Also, we do got something nice that we want to mention to you. We're going to do an individual video for it too. It's a Night Shift initiative. Ran by the guys you see right here, that we're going to be doing a food drive initiative. We do have a nonprofit, so we're going to be doing a food drive initiative also, which spills over to helping out for this month of Ramadan for Zakat al-Fitr. All right, we're going to also trying to get any donations and things like that. It's not for ourselves. Yes. We're just trying to make a effort of pushing towards trying to, as an organization and as a solidified nonprofit, to move towards helping out. So instead of running our mouths about what ain't being done, we're going to try to jump into that field.
So here at the Search and Rescue General Store, you can drop off your Zakat al-Fitr here. We will help to find families that need the Zakat al-Fitr. Yeah. And if there's any questions as far as what to give, how much to give, measurements and things like that, we'll also be able to help and assist with that as well.
We'll provide you with the information that's needed for that. So we're going to start the food drive. We're going to try to push the people, whatever you can bring. We want to be able to give out and delegate and distribute the food drive on behalf. Now, it's not going to be restricted just to Muslims, so we will be feeding non-Muslims as well, as a way of dawah as well. We'll be doing that. So this is called the Night Shift Food Drive Initiative. All right, so if Like we said, we're going to put together something. If you want to actually bring, you can bring food. You can donate whatever you want to bring. If you're going to give money and stuff like that, we'll provide you with the details. But food and stuff like that.
And the food that we want is dry goods, canned goods, non-perishable items, because we don't have a refrigerator. We have, we have a room temperature storage.
Yeah.
But we don't have a refrigerator. We can't bring in anything that needs to be refrigerated or heated up.
Exactly. And hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, Allah Jalla wa ala reward us all for that. Inshallah.
Ameen.
Thank you all for paying attention and staying tuned. Inshallah ta'ala, we got some more stuff coming next week. Stay tuned for the next talk before we're done with this whole segment, inshallah. Whatever we said that was incorrect, definitely from ourselves. The shaitan was correct from Allah Jalla wa ala. Subhanakallahu bihamdi. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.